Buckle up, folks, because today we're taking a deep dive into some pretty heady stuff.
Yeah, we're talking blog posts, project proposals, even a draft constitution.
All trying to grapple with some really big questions about the future.
It's like they all landed on the table at once, all these different ideas about money, about human rights, about how we govern ourselves in a world that's changing faster than ever.
But here's the thing, and this is what we're going to explore today. These ideas, they're not as separate as they might seem.
In fact, they're all connected, all intertwined in some really fascinating ways.
So in this deep dive, we're going to try to untangle these threads and see where they lead us.
We're talking about decentralized finance, human autonomy, and the future of global governance.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, I know, but trust me, it's way more interesting than it sounds.
It really is, because at the heart of it all is this question of power.
Who has it? Who gets to decide? And how do we create systems that are more fair and just for everyone?
So let's start with the basics.
Yeah, let's break it down.
Decentralized finance, or DeFi, you've probably heard the buzzword.
It's kind of hard to escape these days.
But what does it actually mean? Well, think about how our financial system works now.
Banks, financial institutions, governments, they're the gatekeepers.
They control the flow of money, they set the rules, and they take their cut along the way.
DeFi aims to change all that.
It's about using technology like blockchain and smart contracts to create a more direct and transparent financial system.
One where individuals can transact with each other directly without the need for those traditional intermediaries.
Imagine a world where you could send money to someone on the other side of the planet instantly, with minimal fees, and without having to go through a bank.
Or where you could invest in a project you believe in directly, without needing the approval of a venture capitalist.
That's the promise of DeFi, and it's a powerful one.
And this is where things start to get really interesting. Because DeFi isn't just about changing how we move money around.
It has the potential to fundamentally reshape our relationship with power.
And that's where human autonomy comes in.
Exactly, because if we're talking about individuals having more control over their own finances,
it naturally follows that they'll have more autonomy in other areas of life as well.
It's about empowering people to make their own choices, to shape their own destinies, without being beholden to large institutions or centralized authorities.
And we actually see this reflected in one of the sources we're looking at today.
The AI 231 www IoT Architectural ANN NLTP blog.
Yeah, I know it's a mouthful, but stick with me.
These guys are doing some really fascinating work on simulating decentralized financial markets.
They're basically trying to model how these systems would work in the real world and what the implications might be.
And what's really striking is how their work goes beyond the purely technical.
Yeah, they're not just interested in the nuts and bolts of how to make these systems function.
They're also thinking deeply about the social and political dimensions.
About how these technologies could be used to create more equitable and autonomous societies.
They even talk about the possibility of autonomous communities and decentralized governance models.
It's like they're trying to reimagine what's possible.
And it's not just them. The Continental Alliance, which we'll get to in a bit.
They're all grappling with this fundamental question. What does it mean to be human in a world that's becoming increasingly decentralized?
And how do we ensure that these new systems actually empower individuals rather than just creating new forms of control and inequality?
It's a balancing act for sure, and one that we're only just beginning to understand.
But it's a conversation worth having, because the choices we make today about technology, finance, and governance will have a profound impact on the world we create for ourselves and for generations to come.
So we're talking about the Continental Alliance now, right? They're really big on this idea of human autonomy.
Yeah, they basically argue that human rights are meaningless without it.
Which makes sense when you think about it.
Like, what good is freedom of speech if you're too afraid to say what you really think?
Right, exactly.
So they're really focused on creating a system where individuals feel empowered to exercise their rights without fear of reprisal.
And they've actually gone so far as to draft a preamble for a potential constitution.
A constitution for a world where decentralized systems and human autonomy are paramount.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you really think about it.
It is, isn't it? But it's also super interesting to see how they ground their vision in these familiar concepts.
Yeah, like they draw on historical legacies, they reference biblical covenants.
And they really emphasize the inherent dignity of every human being.
As the foundation for their proposed system, right?
Exactly.
It's like they were trying to find a way to bridge the gap between these radical new ideas about decentralization
and the values that have underpinned societies for centuries. Yeah.
And it makes you think, like, how do you actually balance those things?
How do you create a system that truly allows individuals to thrive while also addressing these big global challenges that require cooperation and coordination?
Yeah, it's a tough one for sure, but the Continental Alliance, they don't shy away from it.
No, they definitely don't.
And they also talk about this idea of reassessing global governance structures.
In light of these calls for greater autonomy and, these massive shifts that we're seeing in our economic paradigms.
It's like they're advocating for a more flexible, adaptable system of governance, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. One that recognizes that financial autonomy, human rights, global cooperation, they're all interconnected.
Like pieces of a puzzle.
Exactly.
And it's not just about decentralization for its own sake.
It's about using these new tools and technologies to create a more just and equitable world for everyone.
Which is a goal I think we can all get behind.
For sure.
So, we've talked about the Continental Alliance and their vision, but they're not the only ones grappling with these ideas.
Right. The World Constitutional Law Establishment Institute, or WCLEI, is also exploring the future of governance.
But through a slightly different lens, I'd say.
They seem to be taking a more pragmatic approach.
Yeah, they're really focused on how new business opportunities and global collaboration can pave the way for a better place for all.
And they're not just talking the talk, they're already working with organizations all over the world.
Building connections, laying the groundwork for a more interconnected and hopefully more harmonious future.
And one of the things that really struck me from their materials was this quote.
Okay, let's hear it.
"A new enemy of all humanity has arrived. This reason alone is sufficient for the establishment and declaration of a world government, as a preventative course of action and without future profit."
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, it really makes you stop and think.
It's like they're saying that the challenges facing humanity are so urgent,
So potentially catastrophic.
that we need to seriously consider some radical solutions. So they're saying we need a world government.
Yeah, to prevent global annihilation.
That's a pretty extreme solution.
It is. It raises so many questions, though, right?
Yeah, like how would it even work?
And if we did have a world government, what would happen to individual autonomy?
Exactly, that's what I was thinking.
Would it just be another layer of bureaucracy, another way for the powerful to control the powerless?
Or could it actually be a force for good?
Could we create a world government that truly empowers individuals and upholds human rights?
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
And I don't think there's an easy answer.
No, definitely not.
But I think the important thing is that we're having this conversation.
Absolutely. We need to be thinking about these things now.
Because the future isn't set in stone.
It's being shaped by the choices we make every single day.
And the more we understand these complex issues,
The better equipped we'll be to make informed decisions.
that create a better world for everyone.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned.
we've explored the exciting potential of decentralized finance.
And the profound implications it could have for human autonomy.
We've also grappled with the challenges of global governance.
And the need to find new ways to address the pressing issues facing our planet.
It's a lot to process, for sure.
But it's clear that we're living in a time of unprecedented change and possibility.
And while the future may seem uncertain at times,
I'm actually feeling optimistic
me too,
because the very fact that we're having these conversations
that we're questioning the status quo and imagining new possibilities.
gives me hope that we can create a future that is more just, equitable, and prosperous for all.
So keep asking those tough questions.
Keep exploring these big ideas,
And most importantly, don't be afraid to dream big.
because the future belongs to those who dare to imagine it.